Hello Scouts. This short presentation is made to help you prepare for the Archery Merit Badge class being offered at the Camp and Shoot event. Information contained in this presentation is from the Archery Merit Badge Handbook. This handbook is available at the Last Frontier Council office or the Scout shop there at the office. It's highly recommended that the Archery Merit Badge worksheet be completed prior to the Camp and Shoot and brought with you to the event. The range safety rules have several parts. There are safety rules for the shooting line, safety rules for retrieving arrows. There are whistle commands which duplicate the verbal commands of the shooting line. All of these are within the general safety rules for archery. 3 safety rules when on the shooting line. Know and obey the range commands. Always point the arrow in a safe direction, either at the ground or at the target. When done shooting, place the bow in your bow stand and step back from the shooting line. The safety rules for retrieving arrows are retrieve arrows only when the shooting line is clear and the range officer signals retrieve your arrows. 2. As you walk forward to the target waiting line, pick up any arrows on the ground, your own arrows as well as any others. Only one archer may pull arrows from the target at a time. All others stand 6 feet back from the target at the target waiting line. This seems a little bit formal, but when you're pulling an arrow out of the target, it may be difficult and it may pull and you might end up poking somebody else that's there. That's why the reason for one archer pulling arrows from the target at a time. Because archery is a quiet sport and commonly ear protection is not used on the range, whistle commands are often used along with the verbal commands for the shooting line. 2 blasts on a whistle means step to the shooting line. You may pick up your bow, but not the arrows. 1 blast on a whistle means commence shooting. At that time you can pick up an arrow and shoot the end. When you are done, put your bow in a bow stand and step to the waiting line. When I say shoot this end, the end refers to the group of arrows that are going to be shot prior to retrieving the arrows. 3 blasts on the whistle means retrieve your arrows. You may go downrange and retrieve your arrows, and you should follow the 3 rules for retrieving arrows. 4 or more blasts on the whistle is stop, cease fire. You do not shoot any arrow that you've drawn. You immediately let down, put your arrow in your quiver and your bow in its stand. Step back to the waiting line until the emergency causing the ceasefire has been cleared. There are general safety rules for archery in addition to the range safety rules. There are times when at a private range or a public range or at a private practice session or while hunting that a range safety officer will not be present. These general safety rules for archery always apply. Keep all the arrows in their quiver until ready to shoot. The safest way to carry arrows is with a quiver. However, if you must carry them in your hands, keep both hands around all of the arrows with your palms facing down. That means that the arrow will be horizontal and not pointing up and down. Be sure the area around your target is clear before you shoot. Never draw a bow if anyone is in front of the shooting line. Always aim and shoot at a definite target. Never shoot just for the sake of shooting. Be sure of your target and it is safe to shoot at it. If you are not sure, do not shoot. Shoot only at targets that are thick enough to stop your arrow. Use arrows that are the proper length for you. Arrows that are too short can cause serious injury. This is due to the fact that they can draw out of the arrow rest and the bow can be dry fired. Never shoot an arrow up in the air. Walk, do not run. Falling on an arrow could be fatal. When retrieving arrows from behind a target, stick an arrow in the top of the target with the fletching up. This will warn others that you are behind the target. This is important to note that retrieving the arrows, the major part of the time will be finding the arrows that have gone beyond the target. You'll actually be out hunting for them, and it'll take much longer time than just retrieving the arrows that are stuck in the target. So you must make sure that people can keep track of you when you are behind the target retrieving arrows. Always use proper safety equipment, including an arm guard, finger tag or glove, and a bow sling if you need it. Always inspect your equipment before shooting. Never dry fire a bow. This can damage the bow and injure the shooter. A bow is designed to transfer the stored energy into the flight of an arrow. When the bow energy is released and there is no arrow, it is released uncontrollably, thus can damage the bow and cause injury to the shooter. There are local and state laws for owning and using archery tackle, and these can vary widely across the United States. Usually, these rules are associated with the hunting regulations. We will cover the Oklahoma rules for archery in the class period. The parts of an arrow are the shaft, which is the main body of the arrow, the tip or point, which is the business end of an arrow, the fletching, which are the feathers at the rear of the arrow which guide its flight, and the nock, which is a notch on the end of the arrow snapping to the bowstring. The types of arrows are determined by the tips on the arrows. Field or target points are used for general practice and in target shooting. Broadheads are larger, razor-sharp tips which are used in hunting big game. They can be very dangerous to use if not used with extreme care. Fish head arrows are used for bow fishing, and a less common arrow called a blunt is sometimes used for practice and in hunting very small animals. The four principal materials for making arrow shafts are wood, which is traditional, aluminum, which is a more modern and durable material, fiberglass, which is light and strong but less durable, and carbon fiber, which is currently the lightest and strongest and most durable arrows of today. The important parts of making an arrow is determining the proper arrow length for you. Extremely important because arrows that are too short can fall off the arrow rest during draw or firing, which may lead to a dry fire or the arrow being shot unpredictably, impaling the archer or others. Proper placement and alignment of the fletching requires a fletching jig. Arrows are most properly stored in an arrow box or in their quiver. They should be kept in a dry place that is not subject to extreme temperature changes. You should never stack anything on top of your arrows, which should cause them to become warped. The care and storage of arm guards, shooting gloves, and quivers is the same as that for arrows. You should keep these items clean and in a dry place, not subject to extreme temperature changes. Always inspect your equipment before and after use. Cast is the distance a bow can shoot an arrow. Draw weight is the force needed to pull back the bowstring. Draw length is the distance an arrow is drawn back before it is released. Draw weight and draw length are closely related. The draw weight is usually measured at a standard 28-inch draw length. Draw weight is generally the stiffness of the bow, while draw length is determined by the bow length. The draw weight and the bow length are marked on the bow, on the lower limb, or on the riser section. The string height is the distance from the riser grip to the bowstring when the bow is relaxed. The word fistmele is a traditional term for bowstring, but today it is the same as string height. Aiming is the orientation of the bow so that the arrow is on target. There are two methods of aiming: the bow sight method and the point of aim method. The bow sight method aligns a sight or other indicator on the riser with the target. The point of aim method uses the arrow as a sight, aligning the tip of an arrow with the point on the ground in front of the target. Spine refers to the stiffness of an arrow. A mechanical release is a device attached to the shooter's wrist which clips onto the bowstring, allowing the arrow release to be made with a trigger. Mechanical releases are not generally used in beginning archery and are not allowed in target freestyle or barebow archery. Freestyle archery allows the use of approved shooting aids such as stabilizers and pin sights, and in field freestyle archery, optical sights and mechanical releases are allowed. Barebow archery does not allow the use of sights or other shooting aids. Only finger release with a tab or glove is allowed. Making a bowstring is part of our merit badge activity, and it will be done in the class period. It's important that the string is made at a proper length for the bow and that it is strong enough to handle the draw weight of the bow. The range officer is the person in charge of the range activities. He is there to ensure the safety of the participants and bystanders. For your own safety and the safety of others, it is imperative that you respect and obey the range officer and follow the rules as posted. An end is a portion of a round. The ends within a round are the group of arrows shot before the arrows are retrieved. Target archery is shot on a large open field with set distances and angles. Field archery is shot on a roving course moving through woods and fields. The shots have varying distances and angles, and the course itself mimics hunting, targeting, and activities. 3D archery is field archery, but using three-dimensional targets resembling the hunted animals. The Five-Color National Archery Association, or FIDA target, is used in target archery. The target shown on the left is scored as shown. The double center 10 ring both scores as 10, but is kept track of separately to be used for tiebreakers. The target is used in various sizes to be shot at various distances. The National Field Archery Association has targets for both outdoor and indoors. The field targets have 5 scoring rings and vary in size from 8 inches to 26 inches in diameter, which are shot at various distances. This target is shown on the upper left. The center spot is 1/5 of the outer target diameter, with an inner and outer circle used for tiebreaker. It scores by standard scoring 5 for either of the bullseye rings, 4 for either of the white rings, and 3 for either of the black rings. Championship scoring is different and is scored 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The indoor targets are blue, 40 centimeters in diameter, and are shot at 20 yards. Standard scoring is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The recognized international and Olympic championship round for archery tournaments is called the FITA, F-I-T-A. Rules and standards are set by the Swiss-based organization, the Fédération Internationale des Tirs à l'Arc, or FITA. The Olympic FITA elimination system uses 2 sizes of targets at 4 distances, rounds of 36 at each distance. One FITA round is shot over 2 days, with the top 32 archers advancing to single elimination head-to-head match play. Rounds of 12 arrows are shot at 70 meters. The earliest form of the bow includes recurves and longbows. The parts of a recurve are the upper and lower limbs, the recurve portion of the limbs, the handle riser section, which includes the grip, the sight window, arrow plate, and arrow rest. The back of the bow is that which faces the target, and the face of the bow is that which faces the archer. The tip is where the string attaches in the string notch, the string itself, the serving, which is a special wrapping on the string to protect it, and the string height, which we've discussed as a definition. To properly care for your recurve bow, it should be, when not in use, kept in a dry place, not subject to temperature changes, and should always be unstrung before storage. The string should be inspected every time it is used and properly strung. The 9 steps of good shooting for the recurve bow are going to be dealt with and discussed more completely later in this presentation. The proper way to string a recurve or longbow is with the use of a bowstringer. Step-through or push-pull methods, while convenient, may cause damage to the bow. The nocking point is located on the bow by using a bow square. This will be done in class. A certain level of proficiency with a recurve or longbow is required to complete the merit badge requirements under option A. Any one of the following can be demonstrated to show proficiency. These options relate to field archery or indoor target archery. This option relates to outdoor target archery. These two options relate to the specific skill levels defined by other national programs. The compound bow is the only fundamental improvement in bow technology since prehistoric times. A compound bow may be used to complete the merit badge requirements as option B. The compound bow has the characteristic of a mechanical advantage for a portion of the draw length and a let-off in the force required to hold the bow at full draw. This is accomplished by the use of pulleys and cams. Because a compound bow cannot be overdrawn, a specific bow length and bow string length is required for each individual. The names of the parts of a compound bow are the upper limb, the lower limb, the riser section, the limb bolts, which hold the limbs to the riser. Portions of the riser section include the window, arrow rest, and grip. The idler wheel, axle, and cam provide the mechanical working of the string. The portions of the bowstring are the bus cable and the shooting string. The cable guard slide and the cable guard are used to protect the bow from string snapping. The nocking point and serving on the bowstring are similar to other bows. A compound bow requires constant care because it is a highly technical piece of machinery. The user's manual, which comes with your bow, will give you the manufacturer's recommendations for care for your bow. In all cases, the bow is stored in a strung condition, hung vertically or horizontally on pegs, and kept in a dry place, not subject to temperature extremes. The 9 steps of good shooting for the compound bow will be discussed in more detail later in this presentation. Replacing the string on a compound bow requires the tension on the bowstring to be completely released. This requires a special bow press in order to be done safely. The nocking point of a bowstring on a compound bow is determined by the use of a bow square and will be done in class. A certain level of proficiency with a compound bow is required to complete the merit badge requirements under option B. Any one of the following can be demonstrated to show proficiency. These options relate to field archery or indoor target archery. This option relates to outdoor target archery. These two options relate to specific skill levels defined by other national programs. The accuracy of shooting a bow and arrow is highly dependent upon the physical interaction between the bow, arrow, and the entire body of the archer, maybe even more so than with a firearm. Practicing 10 steps in shooting a bow will help make your shooting motion more consistent thus improving your accuracy. The 10 steps may start in your mind as individual discrete steps, but as you develop your skill, these steps should flow together as a consistent, continuous shooting motion. Let's discuss the 10 steps of the shooting motion. Stance. The stance is the position you assume when you shoot. Stand comfortably with your feet a shoulder width apart, your body perpendicular to the target. Nock. Place an arrow in the bow and snap it on the bowstring. Note the index feather orientation. Set. Set the bow in the Y formed by the index finger and the thumb of your grip hand. Position your fingers on the bowstring. Pre-draw. Extend your grip hand and bow arm towards the target. Draw. Pull back the bowstring using your back muscles. Draw back a consistent length. Anchor. Set your anchor point. The anchor point is where the archer's hand and the bowstring touch the face at full draw. Having a consistent anchor point is essential because the anchor point serves as the rear sight. Transfer hold. At full draw, transfer the hold of the draw force to the back muscles. Align the release hand elbow behind the arrow, but do not overdraw. Hold the draw with your back muscles. Aim. Holding your anchor point firm, align the bow and arrow such that the arrow will hit the target. You will use one of the two aiming techniques previously discussed. Avoid snap shooting. Release. The release is the simple action of relaxing the fingers. Follow through. Any slight movement after the release, even a twitch, can affect the shot as the arrow leaves the bow. A consistent follow through will minimize the effects. The consistent application of the 10 shooting steps as a smooth, continuous shooting motion is the most important part of accuracy with a bow and arrow. This concludes this archery merit badge presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you at the camp and shoot.